The world of Cyberpunk 2077 is overrun by unchecked corporations, government corruption, organized crime, gang violence, and various factors that suppress the average person. Then consider areas like Night City, rampant with cyberpsychosis and even warfare. Now imagine you, the average, unchromed, underpaid worker at Scott Burger, on your daily walk to work because your previous rust bucket got caved in by Atom Smasher while he was on a jog. Let's face it, the average person isn't fit to survive in Night City. It takes a different breed, and even then, a whole lot of luck. So what are you to do when, on that walk to work, a cyberpsycho suddenly opened fires on you and every other fleshy civilian walking to their 16-hour shifts? Well, you're going to do nothing because you work at Scott Burger and couldn't afford Trauma Team's full body life coverage. So have fun watching them fly off with a corporate asset as you lay dying. If you don't already get the gist, Trauma Team International is a corporation that specializes in rapid response medical services. Operating from an AV-4 urban assault vehicle, they swoop in, ready to secure their assets by any means and get them to safety and under immediate medical care. Not only are they lethally armed and trained, but essentially untouchable to anyone who'd like to live thanks to their line of work connecting them to every major corporation. So just who are they and what led up to their formation? What kind of people compose their squadrons and leadership? And how did they grow to be unrivaled in their line of work? Today, I will be unraveling everything there is to know. This is the complete lore of Trauma Team International. Trauma Team International was founded in Seattle, Washington at some point before 2020, a time in which an increased violence and crime rate in the US demanded more aid than cities and governments could handle, and so Trauma Team quickly became one of the most powerful corporations in America, seeing enough success to even expand operations to Canada, Europe, and Japan, all of which they maintain superiority in their field, a recognizable name, and trust from clients. By 2020, each major city in their operational countries boasted over a dozen Trauma Team squads, all of which operate out of massive medical hospitals that can be found in the likes of Night City and any overseas locations like Japan or Europe, even being partnered with the likes of Arasaka, Militech, Nightcorp, Biotechnica, Kiroshi, and many more. It's obvious Trauma Team didn't take long to establish itself as a necessity to any major corporate centers. Each squadron is composed of an Aerodyne pilot and co-pilot, 2 security specialists, a lead EMT, and an assistant EMT. This team and their top-of-the-line medical equipment are encapsulated by a heavily armored AV-4. While the pilot mans the AV, the co-pilot mans the front-mounted Gatling gun. At no point during a patient extraction are they permitted to leave their cockpit. During flight, 2 security specialists sit in the same compartment as the EMTs. The security specialists each man a mounted machine gun to their side of the vehicle. The EMTs sit toward the back, with the lead sitting next to the patient stretcher and the assistant sitting next to the medical supplies. During the patient extraction, the 2 EMTs and security disembark from the AV and make their way to the patient to rescue them. If necessary, the 2 security will clear a path to the patient using their rifles and submachine guns. Each EMT is armed with a pistol for self-protection. While responsible for reviving and stabilizing any critically wounded patients, trauma teams are under no obligation to transport casualties to a hospital. With rates of 100 eddies per minute, most trauma team services were part of a corporate group insurance policies, or individual international accounts, with 500 eddy monthly premiums. During the Fourth Corporate War, Trauma Team became busier than ever. The corporation's capabilities had been stretched to their limit. There were countless corporate soldiers and mercenaries requiring medical attention, not to mention the collateral damage, injuring civilians not involved in the conflict. Trauma Team had finally had enough. Much like the Lazarus Group, declared that they wouldn't respond to any alert from a member of the Arasaka Corporation or Militech, both to keep the number of cases down and to preserve neutrality as to avoid being dragged into the Fourth Corporate War. Instead, they would only respond to civilian requests, and they'd be charging the combat rate if anyone so much as fired a weapon within half a kilometer. Even with those extra costs, they were swamped with calls after every clash. Atom Smasher was likely keeping them busy with all civilian casualties and collateral damage. By the time the war ended in North America, Trauma Team had been reduced to regional providers. The conflict not only drew heavily upon their limited resources, but also upon their suppliers. Repair parts for their AV4s were near impossible to come by, and they just couldn't manage to get any meaningful stock of medical dressings, key drugs, vaccines, or personnel. As hospitals and clinics collapsed, more and more ill or wounded patients were dropped to trauma team care. In such a harsh time period, many of those patients couldn't afford the high response fees, but groups of edge runners had been known to chip in to buy a single card that they could break to call in trauma team in the hopes that the paramedics would at least tend to their wounded team members. The endless street battles and the availability of surplus military hardware, Trauma Team had been forced to armor up almost as heavily as the worst of cyber psycho squads. Units that were once a comforting sight looked battle-worn and donned new mil-spec helmets, heavy-duty combat rigs, coupled with heavy armor, power armor support systems, and self-contained combat medipacks. This, coupled with the lack of qualified medtechs, had given the Trauma Team a new face: overworked, angry, and impatient. By 2045, Trauma Team International had been reduced to the neocorp of Trauma Team North America, now being independent franchise-owned groups patrolling cities and responding to insured victims. They also took this opportunity to change their coverage plans to reflect the state of the world, reducing their level of coverage to 2, Silver and Executive. Most corporate cops receive full medical coverage, while execs can receive corporate paid Silver coverage or Executive depending on their status. In 2077, Trauma Team International reorganized once again and retrieved much of its previous assets. As the crime rates went up within the NUSA, Trauma Team raised prices of their services and were equipped with more arsenal than it had in 2020. Each team was now equipped with the Trauma Team Atlas AVs manufactured by Zetatech and supplied with weapons by King Tao. As always, they don't really play politics. They don't ask questions. As long as you pay your dues, your life is safe in their hands, no matter how dire the situation. One of our best looks into the life of a Trauma Team employee is through the lens of a woman named Nadia, a character from the Cyberpunk 2077 Trauma Team comic. Nadia served as a Trauma Team paramedic in Night City, working alongside her boyfriend Dodes. In 2077, their unit was dispatched to a critical distress call from the affluent Westbrook district. The mission quickly deteriorated into a violent confrontation. By the end of the chaos, Nadia was the only one left alive. Her entire squad, including Dodes, killed in action. The trauma of that day sent her spiraling into grief and uncertainty, torn between her duty to save lives and her loyalty to the corporations she served. After a psych evaluation, probing from an executive, and short leave, she returned to service and was placed with a new team. Their next major operation came swiftly, an urgent extraction in the lawless ruins of Pacifica. The target was a platinum client codenamed Apex, pinned down inside a crumbling tower and under fire from a brutal gang. When they breached the site, Nadia's blood ran cold. Apex was the same man responsible for the ambush that killed her last team. Despite this revelation, her squad leader, Nape, ordered her to assist in stabilizing Apex while their security officers, Stratter and Gordon, held the line. Gordon was shot in the neck, and Nadia, unable to ignore a fellow responder's suffering, chose to aid him instead of Apex. She failed to save him and earned a scolding from Nape. As the battle raged on, aerial support tried to reposition but was quickly gunned down by gang fire. Amid the smoke and screaming, Strader and Nape launched a final push while Apex finished the fight with brutal efficiency. When the dust settled, Nadia raised her weapon to Apex's head, but Strader stopped her before she could pull the trigger. Still haunted by the memory of Dodes, she confessed what had happened to her original squad. While descending from the tower, Apex casually revealed the source of the gang's hatred. He had eliminated their leader. With twisted satisfaction, he urged Nadia to take her revenge. Before she could process it, a fresh ambush struck. Nape was shot, and Nadia, desperate, dragged him to shelter with Apex's help. Inside a dilapidated apartment, they tried to stabilize him while the terrified residents, a mother and her sick child, begged for aid. Strader ordered Nadia to focus on their own. Nape died moments later. Furious and grief-stricken, Strader blamed her for the loss, but his rage was cut short when the enemy found them again. Apex asked for stimulants, promising to clear the hallway. As he slaughtered their pursuers, Strader turned on Nadia, accusing her of being unfit for duty. He grabbed her by the throat, demanding justification for sparing her. After he released her, she quietly gave the sick child medicine and prepared to move out. They reached the tower's exit, but Strader wasn't done. He declared her mentally unfit and vowed to see her discharged. But without warning, Apex snapped his neck. He said he'd done her a favor, eliminating the one man who wanted to destroy what remained of her career. As they tried to escape, another gang squad cornered them. Nadia fought fiercely, even after being stabbed, and ultimately killed the last attacker, threatening Apex. Just as more enemies appeared, a rescue craft arrived, cutting them down with precision fire. Troopers disembarked to extract Nadia and the client, but she could no longer stop herself. She raised her gun one final time, aiming it at Apex. He didn't even resist, just stood there, as if inviting it. Visions of Dodes pleaded with her not to follow through, but she pulled the trigger anyway. A notably dangerous trauma team squad is noted in the Danger Gal dossier in the 2040s, titled Squad NC42. It's composed of codependent overachievers who take the toughest gigs as a way to distract themselves. They're terrifyingly efficient, specialized in executive-level calls, and poach from other, slower squads. This talent had led them to become the poster crew of Trauma Team in Night City. Despite the hardships of the time of Red, they've managed to keep their AV4 well stocked with meds, cryo units, and even heavily modified it with nomad gear, enhanced weaponry, and armor. Each member has a story and character sheet, but this is one of those times I can't recommend a sourcebook enough. The Danger Gal dossier is full of unique characters from all types of corporations, organizations, and gangs, so more than anything, I recommend you check it out on your own. On the topic of sourcebooks, here's a cool excerpt from Mike Pondsmith on the writing process of Trauma Team and the early TTRPG. Stupid fact: Trauma Team was invented because at the time I was writing Cyberpunk, I had no way to get a cleric or healer on scene fast enough to save a dying player. The AV4 came about because a paramedic pal of mine was always pitching about the idiot drivers blocking his ambulance when on a call, and used to say it was easier when he was in evac choppers. The result was a group of heavily armed medics who showed up in a flying ambulance to save your butt in 3 minutes. A cyberpunk turn is 3.2 seconds, so that's roughly 10 turns of bleed out. Later, a very similar version just showed up in Shadowrun, which tells me they had the same problem we had, and you guys thought I just came up with the stuff out of my head. Silly punks. And that is everything you need to know about the medical corporation Trauma Team International. Let me know if I missed anything and all your thoughts down below. Do you think healthcare, however dystopian it is currently, could ever reach this point? Please remember to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed or learned something new. And a huge thanks to all the channel members up on screen. I have a lot more in store, so please look out for my future videos. As always, have a great week, and I will see you later, chooms.